Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. Duane the Great Writer and Seer.
In this real side experience, I would find myself in the presence of a large group of individuals that, although most of which visually were unfamiliar to my personal self, impressions would provide assurances that they were those on their respective processes of awareness. Very likely the established physical level human earth-based Nufriends. For indeed there were 2 that I did recognise, not that they presented in forms that the personal self could readily identify, but impressions would be afforded as to who they were. One of them would be Duane, and we all would be occupying a position in creation that rather lacked a feature, more comprising of waves of various coloured intermingling light. Nothing would be spoken at this stage, more impressions as conveyed between those present, including Duane, as he presented his intention of facilitating the frequency that each new friend and aware being in attendance was operating at. In actuality, the purpose of creation serves only as a comparative tool to recognize the all-is from, and anything we create, or created by others that we agree with, will simply be a mechanism by which effects are generated that are our viewpoint comparisons, irrespective of the nature of the idea experienced. In essence, as Duane always mentions, nothing is negated in creation. We create what we will, we deal with the consequent effects, and we endeavour to constantly compare our fabricated creational manifestations with what is real, as we switch between the personal self, where we formulate the ideas through the body vehicles, mind and emotion facilities, and the nowness of the real awareness, our true being selves, aside from the consciousness. The best reference available being to compare everything we create with the sun, as the most viable all-is reference. While in creation, however, as we proceed with our awareness and all-is recognizing processes, creational positioning best conducive for such a process is prudent, that although any position and situation can afford us our comparisons, far easier is it to go about our process and maintain our focus if we are not doing so in manic, extreme, and volatile environmental circumstances. This is where, as I have shared on previous real-side experiences, the new friends will be afforded alternative options, physical level-wise, should situations become hazardous on the earth. For the process of awareness involves a facing and releasing of every idea of a consciousness, every idea that will present as a particular restriction, some of which have us resigned to certain experiences and creational placement, that as we release these restricting ideas, we are no longer bound to their effects and have the option to say, planetary relocate, should such be deemed necessary. For if I hold to ideas that effect as my earth-based position, I can never turn off the computer game and choose another as an analogy, despite alternatives being available. For as the deciders, we must choose the effects we experience, and absent of an awareness process embraced, we are resigned to the entirety of the idea construct, that is the consciousness, and however we are limited and restricted from it accordingly. Additionally, as we proceed with our processes, invariably there will be alterations to our affected body forms, physical level and real side. For as we are releasing restriction and limitation of ideas, we become progressively unlimited automatically and have a greater access creationally, as we are not limiting ourselves to only certain areas of it. Recollecting a recounting of an experience as shared by Duane years ago, he would make mention of how the body forms will resonate at certain vibrations or frequencies, and a value can be assigned. That the average one-dimensional human was around 30 or so, if I recall, and Duane himself around 900, as a reflection of his standing with life, and how this translates through to his body forms in regards to their frequencies. As I mentioned, anything occurring in creation and with our body forms has nothing to do with the true reality of our real awareness, or the isness it is a part of, all as comparison references, but regardless, improved creational positioning, greater opportunities and options made available, and body form enhancing are inadvertent byproducts of an awareness process taken on. As I said in the beginning, Duane intended to boost the frequency of each new friend in this experience, which would be of a benefit overall and in regards to awareness facilitating, as impressions would further reveal. We may be in positions where we have such options. Duane and the guides have the ability to instigate such alterations to our frequencies, frequency being the base state of all affected simulation, including our body forms, though our reference would be ideas as the template of all that is simulated, but as the deciders, we have to agree to allow for such to take place. For despite the abilities of others, that they can impact my experience and body form, this is an idea that I must accept and install in my consciousness, or this cannot be my experience in relation to other beings. And so it was that all the new friends present would readily accept Duane's gift of a frequency enhancing. This would improve their positioning, creationally speaking, and serve to facilitate the awareness process to a greater extent. As I mentioned, the ability of others to impact our experience is according to our agreement, regardless of the nature of the intended imposition. And as I said, there was one other new friend I did recognise who would declare my unsuitability for this frequency enhancing. As it transpired, I harboured in my consciousness agreement extended to this particular individual that allowed his ability to prevent my being able to receive this enhancement, and this would indeed be the case. All others present were now not only operating at an elevated frequency in relation to my own, but within as though a more highly placed creational position, literally speaking, as though this alteration afforded them a greater simulator dimensional access. My personal self somewhat dismayed at this situation, but in reality I had decided this to be, by virtue of agreement whereby this new friend had the granted permissions to prevent me from joining the other new friends, an agreement he could potentially exercise at any moment of his choosing, by whatever means and mechanisms such an agreement in relation to this individual was originally secured. He would go on to state that I wasn't ready and responsible enough to handle such a position as being afforded by Duane, and perhaps this may have been the case. I am in my rudimentary stages of my awareness process, I would suggest, and am going about it at a rather laborious pace very likely. I was, however, adamant in receiving my own enhancement. It somewhat stuck in my personal self-craw, you might say, and perhaps then this experience would reveal wants and desires of the personal self, that which needs addressing. That yes, such creational options may occur by default as we go about our awareness process, but the idea is not to be chasing what are ideas in creation, more so to be retained in the nowness of the real awareness, and simply operate as the indifferent objective view of all that enters our experiential midst. In retrospect, would I evaluate this then as highlighting desires of the personal self, that of being enhanced creationally, as Duane always points out the three nothings, that of wanting, knowing, and being nothing as a good foundation from which to operate from? I have made mention on a number of previous real side experiences that although we can manifest anywhere real side multi-dimensionally, oftentimes we will utilize exaggerated, outrageous, and unorthodox mechanisms of traversing, generally as an aid for experience recall on waking. In my case, I operate occasionally my own version of the TARDIS, a time and space travelling ship as used by Doctor Who in the series by the same name. In this real side experience, not only was my own body form frequency enhancing denied, by virtue of agreement that allowed a new friend to prevent it, but should I have received this frequency boost, so my TARDIS would be even more effective as a means of dimensional traversing, as impressions suggested, as though revealed was the power source of my ship, that being whatever frequency exuded from the body form I operated as when utilizing my TARDIS. I had the sense of Duane and the group, though they were now operating at a dimensional position subtly removed from my own, and now would relocate myself to within the confines of my physical level recreated house, which represents the consciousness on the real side. As such, the house will contain every idea that is our consciousness construct, and I would be attempting to make adjustments to the ideas of consciousness that would allow my ability to join Duane and the Nufriends where they now were positioned. For many experiences have been shared by myself and others involving house refurbishments and modifications, or reconstruction and clearing, symbolizing adjustments being exacted to the consciousness to effect circumstances more conducive for the awareness process. Perhaps I was seeking the agreement that allowed the preventing of my assuming the frequency enhancement and to sever it, but overall my efforts seemed unsuccessful. I would now exit the house via the back door and venture into the back garden, and as the house overall represents the consciousness, the vast bulk of the consciousness, the idea agreements of every lifetime prior to that which we are currently experiencing will be the subconscious area and represented by our back gardens on the real side. For each lifetime we will receive a new body form, including then a memory facility, absent of any experiential reference, as everything we previously experienced, the ideas that effected such, will be transferred to as though the computer backup filing system, the subconscious, and generally will be inaccessible unless we indeed embrace an awareness process that exposes us to the entirety of the consciousness, subconscious included. For despite our being unconscious of the subconscious, we remain its effects, until we face and release every idea contained therein, and again, on a number of previously shared real side experiences, has activity in the back gardens represented dealings with the ideas the subconscious comprises of. This seemed then to be the representation, that having been unsuccessful in isolating and identifying the idea agreements that denied my frequency boost within the consciousness, I now was delving into the subconscious to locate perhaps ideas long ago installed that were affecting my current limiting situation. For indeed I would encounter 3 curious women, their forms constantly in flux, though they presented as guardians of a kind and in relation to my objective to assume a greater creational positioning and access made possible via a body form frequency enhancement. I'm uncertain as to who these women were, but rather than verbal dialogue there would be an exchange of impressions, and where they would set me a series of tasks that I must endeavour to complete, that would allow for me to join Duane and the Nufriends where they currently were positioned. The idea was that I was to prove my worth, as it were, as according to these women, and what followed made very little sense to my personal self, to the point of being indescribable, though the overall gist of it was in regards to my being able to be the recipient of the frequency enhancement should I complete the assigned objectives. It was all rather nonsensical to my personal self, but I would proceed with it. Some of the tasks I would complete to the satisfaction of the 3 women, some I wouldn't exactly fail, but be as though late with the delivery of their execution. Consequently, the 3 women would deny me what I required to join Duane and the Nufriends, but unperturbed I would relocate again to another position, determined to have my frequency boost seemingly. I would now find myself in a mechanical realm, as the best I can describe it as. Everything it consisted of was metallic, as though the interior of an enormous engine, and it was here that I sought a particular individual. There would in actuality be many varied and assorted body forms operating within this mechanized realm, but among them would be a body type with the ability to as though make the consciousness alterations that I required. For just as Duane and the guides can make such a consciousness adjustments to others where agreements allow, many other beings can do likewise, some of which I have encountered and shared my experiences in regards to, either those on their awareness of processes, and thus have this as a part of their skill set, or personal self-immersed beings who have developed themselves this way that they can also make alterations to the consciousnesses of others. This particular being was an excessively tall and gangly individual, humanoid to a degree, that although my personal self had never encountered him before in my current lifetime of experiences, physical level or real side, he seemed to be an associate of mine, an individual lacking any intent with all his recognition, though with the developed ability where consciousness restructuring was concerned. And as I extended agreement, allowing his assistance, he was more than eager to extend his aid. The overall idea was of his restructuring my consciousness in a certain way, that I would be liberated from my restricting idea, preventing my ability to assume the frequency boost. Visually, this presented as him constantly vacating my presence, disappearing into the array of mechanized gears and moving parts of the realm we were in, then returning with as though an update as to his progress, before vanishing again for further consciousness-altering operations. And maybe the mechanized position we were in represented the engine room that is the consciousness, that which generates the ideas that become the effects we experience. As a new friend Phil has shared a number of real side experiences of a mechanical nature, and Duane had suggested the representation being that of creation and its multi-dimensional layout as effected from overall consciousness. The experience would end there, and as I mentioned earlier, my final determination was that of revelation, the unveiling of personal self-wants and desires in regards to the body forms and the experiences we receive, that we can fall into the trap of becoming overly absorbed in the simulation of experience, that which can become just as much a thrill-seeking and creationally admiring pursuit as any other idea indulgence that takes our fancy, that everything occurring simulation-wise, irrespective of its nature, isn't that which is real, and to stand as real beings of light in the endless universes of the all-is. So this requires a divorcing of attachment with any created idea, including particular experiences we may seek, positioning we may desire, or anything in regards to our fabricated real awareness animated body forms. And perhaps this is rather a hard lesson for me to learn, as I always did seek the real side adventures, but better is it to simply be the view absent of a personal self-desire, and as such we receive exactly what we need each moment in regards to our awareness process, as the real awareness utilizes the body forms and experiences to this end. I refer back to the three nothings as identified by Duane. I am nothing, I want nothing, I know nothing. And within that nothingness lies everything, the everything that all life is.